So we'll go ahead and start with Chapter 3. And this is about the principle evaluating your program. And I'm just going to do a brief overview on it because it was a pretty in-depth chapter and lots of information to be gained from it. So basically, with the principles of the program evaluation, you look at how you can collect information in regards to your program, primarily not only to see what your audience is learning and has received from it, but also the benefits of improving your program, which I think to me is an ultimate goal, because you constantly want to learn how to improve. So the evaluation as friend and foe looks at the stereotypes and opportunities. That the evaluation can be seen as a process for gathering information to make your program stronger, and it provides vital data about the parts of the program that are working well and which need the tweaking. And none of these words are my own, they're all directly from the book, pretty much. Establishing the target, you have the vision and goals, and they're designed to measure a broad array of outcomes pre- and post-workshop. The developing a vision, shared expressions of the program staff, and it describes what they want the program to accomplish by focus on the end results. They generally have the qualities of being lofty and a big picture and truly ambitious of what you're trying to accomplish within your program. They're dynamic, needing revisiting and renewal periodically. So I really like that. So as you go on and you develop these evaluations, you start to recognize things that need to be updated, whether it be from the information gathered throughout the evaluation that allows you to know what you need to change with your audience and or your actual workshop. They focus and express on shared hopes and dreams for the program. The people united in a common cause begin to share their visions with each other. Each person in a work group may be driven by a personal vision that is different from anyone else's in the group. And I thought that was a really great concept too, because we are all, we have different visions. Even though we can collaborate our thoughts and create something amazing, we ultimately all see things differently from the experiences of our life and even the research that we do. So I thought that was a really great aspect to really look at. Diversity can enrich the collective and the quality of the work. So I thought that also was, I really like that. I really have enjoyed working with Angelina and us coming together to create this workshop. And because it really does, like the book says, it really enlarges and enriches each one of us to create possibly a new vision on how to accomplish something. So it is a single statement of a vision of which all members of the group will express, and complete support will, again, often be difficult because, again, our perspectives are different from one another. It's a reasonable goal for this vision discussion is better to understand each other and to identify some common purposes. So ultimately what you're doing collectively is coming together to create a common purpose and outcome for the workshops. So getting specific program goals and objectives are one step more specific than the vision. They express the general purposes for specific programs. Objective is the most specific level of intent. Objectives are the place where our thinking must get most clear and specific. It's the creation of objectives requires very careful thinking, yet allows us to design and assess more effective programs. Another dimension to objectives is the time span of effects. The more immediate effects of the program are called outcomes, and the long-term effects are called impacts. So an example of the evaluation framework in parenting education is matching the parts, and the objectives must be suitable for the specific audience in reading level and appropriateness of target behavior. The one thing, too, that I learned by our pilot program with this is that we, not just the reading levels, but we need to be aware and alert to possible learning disabilities. So I did want to address that as well, because one of the individuals that I did my pilot with is dyslexic, and he had a very difficult time reading part of the material that I gave. So that's one reason that it's always really good to ask for volunteers versus, you know, calling on somebody or requesting for them to read. I didn't call on anybody, but I asked them to read a basic snip of something, and he had a really difficult time. So defining the kind of information needed, the evaluation questions, evaluation of data, and there are 6 steps: assessment of participant progress, guiding program decisions, refining program process, specifying effective program elements, establishing the merit of specific viewpoints, and maximizing programs' effects. The common question guide evaluation is attitude, knowledge, and skills, behavior, greatest impact, what remained unaddressed, and evidence program satisfies the objectives. And the one thing it did state was to be really careful with wording. So we need to make sure that we're not trying to influence their answers and or putting them on the spot where they have to accomplish something, because truly we all have agency and therefore nobody has to do anything ultimately. The 5-tiered approach of the program evaluation, the first level is pre-implementation tier. A community needs assessment is conducted to first establish fit between community need and proposed program. So that's always really good, and that's, you know, looking at what the audience ultimately needs versus what you want to try to accomplish. The second tier is accountability tier. The systematic collection of client-specific and service utilization data. Effective evaluation includes asking instructors and participants about the pattern of service delivery and client participation, and informative in nature. The third tier is the clarification tier. Program staff and participation provide feedback on how to improve program content and delivery. Includes close scrutiny of program goals and objectives, how we can do a better job ultimately. And the client satisfaction data are valuable on this level, often helpful to gather data not only from active program participation, but also from those who registered but dropped out of the active participation. Informative in nature. We want to see who is participating in the program and how they are experiencing it. The formative evaluation data are very important to help guide your efforts toward better service and clientele. The 4th level, progress towards objective tiers, will often require the help of professional evaluators or others with specialized knowledge of evaluation. And I imagine some of those specialized individuals would also include statisticians as well. The 5th level, the final level, is the program impact tier, and it's the most rigorous, entails random assignments of participants to treatment and delayed treatment groups, longitudinal data collection. It's a complex analysis. 30 to 40% of the total budget may be allocated for the evaluation activities. That was astonishing to me, that the majority of the budget, well, to me, I look at that as being the majority of the budget going to evaluations. Not the right level of evaluation for young and still developing programs, so that's way beyond us, thankfully. So then we go into the logic model approach to evaluation. The 5-tiered model of evaluation sensitizes program developers to need to match evaluation efforts to maturity of the program. First developed by Edward Suchman. Priorities are related to the vision of the program. The logic models includes needs inputs. Outputs are divided into activities and participants. Outcomes or impacts divided into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. What are changes in knowledge, attitude, skills, and aspirations? Ungirding the other elements of logic model are assumptions. One way of organizing the various elements of the program. Provide a framework for organizing, thinking, and planning. The transformative learning is the personal interview with the participants. And I thought that was interesting, and we've seen that before in our other classes where they take participants in and evaluate them one-on-one. Results mapping is the quantitative and qualitative methods, limiting assumptions. The post-test first methods. There are times when the post-test without the pre-test may be preferred way to evaluate. So we don't always want to try to see what they know beforehand. Participants may give themselves a lower score on the post-test than the pre-test, even though they may actually be doing better. The lower scores represents not diminished skill, but heightened expectations, and that's called shift bias. So I thought that was a really good thing to always keep in the back of our minds when we're evaluating things too, that we need to realize that we're giving them a lot of great information. So what they knew previously, they may diminish what they know after because they want to do better. So I thought that was a really great aspect. Using evaluation data, not only should evaluation be designed with its end use in mind, but also careful attention should be exercised to the amount, depth, and style of the presentation based on its purpose. So that's what the information I have from chapter 3, and I will go through the appendix now as well. And this time I'm just, all of us really know how to read, and it's all within my outline, so I will try to pretty much just cover what's in the summary. So this is the ethics and family life education, the need for ethical standards, the ethical principles and guidelines, it discussed the Minnesota Council of Family Relations, and the Family Educator Code of Ethics, curriculum guidelines, professional ethics and practice. Let's go into the POM. So basically with this particular, within the appendix, I guess the major thing that we need to realize within this is, to me, the Family Life Educators Code of Ethics. These are guidelines that we want to follow in our life and in our profession. I know for me, going through it almost makes me tearful because it's so spot on to me in regards to what is expected of us. And as BYUI students, we need to realize we have signed this Code of Ethics, so therefore, anytime we encounter anything that we suspect to be abuse, does indeed need to be reported, because we have ethically and morally been called to do so, but now we have been mandated also because we have signed that contract within the school policies, and we have submitted that. So this particular document was created in 1992, and it does apply to us, and I think that has been a great blessing. I can honestly feel like I'm a mandatory reporter without just so many people I think feel compromised, and that was a great meeting that we had the other day where it flabbergasted me that people would think that they don't have to report things, but we are blessed to have that. So that will indeed, part of the virtue ethics was that it does provide hope and optimism to others, and it does show that we care about others. So that's basically the synopsis I have, and more detail can be found in regards to the Appendix C on my outline itself. So thank you so much. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to comment real quick on when you were talking about the assessment plan, and we had to write up our assessment plan already and the assessment instrument. And as I read that chapter initially and worked on writing those, it was hard for me to understand the value of this part of the process. But now looking back I completed my second workshop last night, and now I have these assessments that have been filled out, and and they were taken anonymously, so I don't know who filled out which ones, but I have enjoyed going back and seeing what material they felt. It's been interesting to see what they felt was applicable to them and what wasn't as much, and to read suggestions for improvement. And I didn't really see the importance of it until now. So I don't know. It's been interesting to have that change of perspective.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because, yeah, sometimes it does seem tedious initially, but then at the end we are able to see the value. So thank you, Tamara. So I guess Angelina's up on the floor with the PALM, Professional and Ethics and Practice.
Yes, I think so.
I'll go ahead and mute.
Tamara, do you want to go first? I don't know how much time you have left to be on this morning.
My other meeting's at 10. I have to convert the time at 10:30. So I think we.
Yeah, I think you should go first, because I don't want you to accidentally run out of time and you'll be late for your other meeting.
Okay, I can go first. So the part I'm covering for our meeting is the reading that we did just most recently, where we read the two articles that were both somewhat similar, looking at the model of family involvement, and the articles. So the second article, the Myers, I can't remember the title of it, but Myers was the main author. The author that talked about how the model in some cases is used extensively, but they feel that it doesn't really have an accurate description of family life education, and it doesn't clearly define all the boundaries from a family life educator to a family therapist or a family case management. So I enjoyed reading the article, and I think the things that stuck out most to me was the definite description of responsibilities for each of these, the family life educator, the family therapist, and the family case management. I had not heard of family case management that I remember until reading this article, so that was very informative for me. And I used the questions the suggested questions mostly for my outline, just because I felt that it helped me relate it more to my workshops. And some of the questions were, you know, looking at our workshops and what we're preparing, do we run the risk of crossing over the boundary from a family life educator into a family therapist? And I think reading through the different descriptions, it could happen in some cases really easily without really realizing that you have crossed over. And as I looked at the setup for my workshop, I wasn't worried about that. I think because it was a group, so much of a group setting, I think if I had been working individually with one couple, maybe there could have been more potential for that if they had, you know, started to share more so that it got into where they were looking for someone to give them therapy rather than education. But I didn't, overall, I didn't feel that that was a risk I would run into for my workshops. And to kind of help me with that, I made sure that I was using questions that would get participation, but they didn't really have a personal side to them. So hopefully they were used more for reflection, and then if people felt it was appropriate to share, they could share, and they wouldn't feel pressured into sharing things that they weren't comfortable with. And it didn't, you know, I did complete my workshops, and I didn't have any questions that I felt would have made me step over the line. But I would hope I would be able to recognize those questions that would, it would be better for the people to seek, you know, help with a professional rather than me trying to solve their problems for them. But as I learned more about the model and the different responsibilities, I found it helpful for me to, I don't know, try to decide what it is I would eventually want to do with this degree, if I would want to step out of family life education into something a little bit more, or stick strictly with family life education. I don't know. Does anyone have any questions on the material from those articles?
I don't have any questions. The only comment I have is I do think it's a slippery slope sometimes, because I think innately we want to help people. So even when we get to the point where we want to offer advice, we have to be very cautious of what we say, because it can tend to slip over to like a family therapist. I'm not so worried about being a case manager, because that's the whole social worker type thing, and I don't have that desire to investigate and search things out necessarily, because I do want to block my thoughts from those types of things at this point in time in my life. And it's not that I don't care, it's just that I don't want to involve myself to those depths. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you. You really summed it up well.
Well, I think it was helpful to read the specific definition of the difference between, you know, family life educator and family therapist, and really understand what their roles are. And then one thing that stuck out to me really was that in a lot of cases, there needs to be a balance of family life educators working with family therapists, because the family life educators don't have the training to be a family therapist, and a lot of the family therapists don't have the background that's needed for extensive family life education. And so it should be a joint effort to really bring what's best for the families.
I agree. It should be a joint effort, and nor do they have the time, because they have to do the one-on-one type therapy. So
Mm.
Angelina, did you want to go ahead and present your article?
Um, can you guys hear me now? Okay, I start. So I kind of felt like based on all the articles and the reading that we had to do from the book were basically on the same thing because it talked about the same thing practically, but it's just explaining things a bit more. The primary article was all about ethics, how professionals handle ethical situations. Um, there are three theoretical traditions in ethics. First is the principles approach, which is used for addressing specific ethical dilemmas and reflecting professional values. A major limitation within that is that it's not enforced by a professional body at the time. There is rational ethics, which forms the basis for organizing ethical principles and the MTFI approach, and also it forms the basis for understanding the specific ethical dilemma and guide pathways first and foremost toward the development of caring and respectful relationships with our family members. There's the virtue ethics, which focuses on the person of the family educator thing, and the moral competence. They normally define it as the disposition to do the right thing for the right reason. And there are three specific virtues that professionals need to focus on. Caring, which they normally support the well-being of family members as being able to make decisions for their own lives. Prudence or practicalism, which is the ability to understand competing needs and complex situations and make decisions based on reflection and consultation with peers. And there's hope for optimism. The disposition to focus on strength and positive potential of family members and other individuals, and to maintain a positive attitude in the face of victory. Then, having a code of ethics defines professional conduct through the delineation of broad principles. It has been found that the codes do not always offer clear directions in face of the ethical dilemma situation where whenever two principles in the code come into conflict with each other, or when the codes tend to reflect on past problems in the profession. However, one of the greatest strengths of the code of ethics is that it describes expectations for professional behavior and it reflects professional values. So, what else? A downside of the code of ethics is that the most codes are not grounded in theory, and it's been said that professionals sometimes are not familiar with the code if they haven't been using it on a regular basis. And what else I found interesting? There are two different approaches to ethics. It's mandatory, which include compliance with the law and specific code of moral conduct for a profession. And there's aspiration ethics, which is more than a compliance with the law and code of ethics. It tends to encourage individuals to be more sensitive to the effects of their intervention on the welfare of others. So basically, the process of making ethical decisions is to identify relationships, apply the principles, identify any contradictions or tension present in the situation, and identify possible solutions and a selection of actions when you're having a plan. Um, I found interesting were some of the challenges that family life educators have. So they have issues before they establish clear boundaries of practice and ethical responsibility, encountering diverse values and family structures, getting administrators to provide time, resources, and leadership in promoting ethical thinking and practice, as an effective part of the program, keeping ethical awareness alive after a set of guidelines have been defined. But I think that's kind of sad. And enforcement was because the current approach to ethics should evolve into a code of ethics that has been enforced by a physical group that is approved by the NCFS. So yeah, that's basically what the entire article is talking about. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Angelina, thank you so much. I really liked how you said, it's all about doing the right things for the right purpose. And I think that falls to all of them as we make ethical decisions through the steps that are outlined through the process of it. So thank you so much for covering that material for us this week.
I don't have any questions either. That was a good summary and a good recap on the article. Thank you.
So I suppose we are done, right?
I think so.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And Tamara, since we have a few minutes, do you want to share some of your workshop? Just like, what your feelings are, and just curious if you want to. I would love to hear it.
So, I mean, are you looking at like the content or how I felt like it went?
How overall you felt it went, and the whole process of everything, creating and down to being able to breathe now.
Well, I don't know about the breathing. It is a little, it's not quite a heavy a burden, but I haven't started my literature review, so that's going to be the next step. But I have to say that I think I had more anxiety going up to it than I did the actually presenting the workshops, which I didn't expect. I am not a fan of public speaking, and I figured I would just be a mess presenting. But I think I was more nervous doing the pilot teaching than the actual workshops. I had 12 people for the first night and 6 for the second night. And people were really willing to participate, which helped. I had a lot of comments and feedback. I was afraid my material would go through too quick, but with the participation of people sharing experiences and asking questions, it made a big difference. I think the key was I had my material ready about 5 days before the first presentation, and I just practiced over and over, and I think I even did it in my sleep. So that I, could have that confidence in that I knew the material and I was comfortable with presenting it. And I have to say it was actually more fun than I thought it would be. Still a little nerve-wracking, but it was fun. I think like you, I wanted really to reach out to people and get, it's concepts that can really help anybody. Communication could be for any relationship. And I didn't get the turnout as I wanted as far as the community, and the people that did come, I think probably the reason that they came was they were there to show support to me, but it was encouraging to hear them say at the end, wow, I really learned something. They didn't expect to come and learn something, and they did. They felt that it was worth their time, and they had learned a lot. So that was encouraging. But I think that the key for me was the practicing, so that I felt comfortable. Did you have any specific questions about it?
I don't. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was wondering how your turnout came, and just how the outreach and That's great. So thank you so much. And I'm so grateful that you had fun with it and know that your audience was really, truly able to have a takeaway with them. And so thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good luck with your workshops coming up, both of you.
Thank you.
And Kaylee. It's a little intimidating.
Right. Well, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend, and thank you so much for coming this morning, and thank you so much for all of your support. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you for being flexible with schedule changes. I know it's always hard to work it all out.
Certainly, absolutely. I'm grateful that we had some additional time, too, so thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, good
All
luck,
right.
guys.
You too. Thanks,
Hang in
dear.
there. You can do it.
Thanks.